In this video, I will be removing the front wheel off the KLR 650, removing the tire, tube, rim strap, replacing all three pieces, balance the tire, and then mount it back onto the KLR 650. Remove the axle nut. I've attached a wrench to the ratchet for leverage. Loosen the pinch bolts on both forks. If the axle is stuck, you can use a ratchet with a large Allen socket to break it free, or tap it on the opposite side with a small hammer. Removing the speedometer cable. Slide the axle out of its place. And then the wheel can be removed. Being careful not to drop the speedometer unit and the spacer on the opposite side. Move the valve core to release the air in the tube. Push down on the sidewall of the tire to break the bead. Most spoke rims are easy to break the bead. Some can be done with just your hands and your knee, like I'm doing here. Using tire irons to remove the tire from the rim. Now, removing a tire from a rim like this can be difficult most of the time. If you attempt to flip the edge of the tire over the rim, it helps if the opposite side is pushed down towards the center of the rim, which gives you more slack to pull that tire out. And it's just a matter of working it. Like I said, this can be easy, this can be difficult. It really depends on the tire and how it sits on the rim. It is good to know how to do this process in case you do get stuck out somewhere where you can't get any help. You have a flat tire, you're going to have to break it down, get the tube out, patch it, put it all back together. My preference is, if I have a shop nearby, I remove the tires from the vehicle and I take it to the shop, let them put the stuff on. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and take off the nut on the valve so we can remove that tube. Now it's just a matter of pushing that valve back through the rim and out the side of the tire. You can see that tube is well rusted. Now we gotta get the other side of the tire off the rim, and it's just a matter of working those tire irons into the edge and then pulling it right over the rim. This side is actually a little easier to do because you get to a point where you can just peel it off the rim by hand. And she's out. Hey. Remove the rubber band around the rim. And before I do put the tire on, I like to clean the rim. Installing the new rubber band for the rim. Make sure that's lined up with the hole for the air valve and it's centered on the rim. Motorcycle tires will have an arrow directing the rotation of the tire, so make sure you place that tire on the rim correctly so it rotates in the correct direction. What I'm using to lubricate the tire is nothing more than dish soap and water. Does a good job of lubricating the tire so I can get it on the rim. The first side is usually the easiest side. You can, most of the time, just push it down with your hands and get it in place. Looks like this one's going to fight me a little bit, so I'm using the tire iron to get that last section down onto the rim. The new tube. I'm going to go ahead and take the valve stem cover off and the first nut. We're going to take that second nut and we're going to turn it all the way down to the tube. And then I just use a wrench and snug it up. Alright, the difficult part, getting that valve inside the tire and then back out through the rim. I gotta tell you, it's not an easy task. It can be challenging, but it's doable. Once I get that through the rim, I'll take the nut, put it back on, and secure that valve to the rim. I inflate the tube with a bit of air. That way it's easier to get that tube into the tire where it should be, down below the rim. Just adding a little bit more air. It just helps to get that tube in its proper place. Now I'm just going to take the air out of the tire by removing the core from the valve. And I will make sure that that tube is sitting down below the rim. Applying some lubricant to the tire. Go heavy on the lubricant. You really want it to be slippery so the tire can just slide off the tire irons. Getting the second side in is usually not easy, but work it every 6 inches. And eventually you'll get that on there. Yeah, you can see it's a bit of a pain to work the tire back on, but it's doable. You do have to be careful to not pinch the tube. If you get that tube stuck between that rim and the tire iron, you are going to have an air leak. How do I know? Because I've done it. If you can push on the opposite side of the tire to get that bead down to the center of the rim where you can get more slack on the other side to help make it easier to get the bead of the tire back into the rim. And don't be afraid to use plenty of lubricant to help that tire just slide in. I'm going to install the valve core back into the stem. And I'm going to air the tire up to 50 foot-pounds. And that's just to get the bead for the tire to seat on the rim correctly. You might hear some popping noise while you're doing this. Make sure your hands are away from the tire and the rim so you don't get your fingers stuck in between the bead and the rim. Lastly, I check both sides of the tire to make sure it's seated evenly around the rim. If there's any weights, I'll remove the weights. This tire has a lead spoke weight, so all you need is basically a screwdriver to open up the weight and remove it from the spoke. What I like to do is set the tire pressure at 40, let it sit overnight, and then the next day I'll do another check to see if it's still at 40. That way I'll know 100% that there is no leaks in this tire. Here's the specs on the tire that I'm using. It's a Kenda 90-90-21, a K761 model. From what I understand, some people are getting 4,000 to about 8,000 miles out of these tires. This is what I use to balance tires. Ride-On tire sealant and balancer. Been using this on the Harley Davidson for 2.5 years now, and I've had nothing but good results. The bonus is if you do get a puncture in a tire, it will seal the tire also. If you're running this, I do suggest you check your tires on a weekly basis or more, because you could get a nail and not even know it. Alright, so to get the sealant into the tire, you're just going to remove the valve stem core, let the air out of the tube. The package does come with its own valve stem cover. That opposite side has a core remover. Now, to get it into the tube, it's simply a matter of you put that hose onto the valve stem, and then you fit it onto the bottle, and you put the correct amount into the tire. For this tire, it calls for 7 ounces of Ride-On. For how much Ride-On sealant to use in your tire, go onto the Ride-On website. Speedo gear back on. The bushing. Slide the axle through. Put on the axle nut. Torque it down to 65 foot-pounds. Tighten the pinch bolts and torque those down to 15 foot-pounds. And lastly, I'm going to put the Speedo cable back in its place. If it does not align, just turn the wheel like I'm doing here, and you'll see that it'll eventually line up, and you'll be able to tighten the cap down and just snug it. And that, my friend, is how you remove the front tire and install a new tire. Down below I'll have links to the tire, the tube, and the rim strap if you're interested in that. Questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. You all ride safe, and God bless.